Whew. We made it once again. What an absolutely beautiful day here in good old Wingo, Kentucky. It is absolutely gorgeous. 72 degrees out here. It is April 23rd. That's always a drive. It's about 4 hours from Oldham County, where I am, all the way out here to the pretty much the most southern western tip of Kentucky. And there's already a huge crowd back in here. I mean, I don't know if you can see way over here, but that looks like there's about 50 beekeepers already over here. And then driving in, I was driving by his barn and his house and stuff, and there's beekeepers everywhere. So we are already getting started. So this will be the first year that I'm here all 3 days, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'm always excited to come to Kent's. Like I've told you guys in the past, I just follow him around like a little puppy dog and ask him a bazillion questions and try to pick his brain and absorb as much as I can. And thankfully, Kent tolerates me and puts up with me quite well. So I feel bad for the guy, but I just ask questions and he answers. It's a great relationship. Anyway, what I was showing you earlier on the way in, this is my camping spot. I've told Kent that this is the Josh KOA grounds right here. So I wish he would have mowed it for me. It's a little tall grass, but that's okay. Just like being at home, I'm sure there's plenty of ticks over here. But what time is it? It's 11 o'clock here. They're an hour ahead of me back home, so I actually save time on the way here and lose time going home. I think lunch will probably be in about an hour. That's good timing on my part. I'll go ahead and get my tent set up, get all my gear out, and get prepared to stay here for 3 nights and 4 days, I guess. I'll leave, it's Thursday around 11. I'll leave Sunday, probably morning, sometime early morning time frame before it gets too hot. I think as far as weather, I'm going to get rained on Friday night into Saturday morning. But other than that, it looks like we're going to get some gorgeous weather out here, which is always a hit or miss this time of year. April in Kentucky, you never know what you're going to get. So anyway, I'm here. I made it. And let's go ahead and get this tent set up and get this party started.
You can't expect to treat with no Varroa, and it cut the population of Varroa mites in the hive. It will eventually, but not within a couple of generations or brood cycles. The other ones were treated with Varoxan. And the reason they were treated with Varroa and Varoxan is because they had a very low mite count at the end of March. And that's the time that it's best to treat with either Varroa or Varoxan, is when you start with a low count. Neither one of them are designed to actually reduce the number of mites in the hive, just to hold it at a stable level. So since we had a low mite count coming out of the winter, we treated with Varoxan and Varroa, and we'll see what comes of it. First time I've used Varroa, and if you come back next year, I will tell you either this is something you need to start incorporating or run. Don't fool with it. Varoxan, I've had a little experience with that last year, and I actually liked it. It's not often that something comes along that's new that I use it and think, wow, that's great. And Varoxan hadn't got to the wow, that's great level yet, but for me, so far it has worked the way it's supposed to. Yes.
After you treat with the Varoxan, will you then go back and treat those hives with the Varroa?
I will not treat them with Varroa until later in the fall. I might use an Aroa going into winter. You know, like early October here. I mean, early October here is not like early October where you're from.
I know.
This lady, she probably gets the prize for coming the longest distance.
And my friend next to me.
And her friend, they're from New Hampshire.
Oh, you beat us. Son of a gun.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire. But for all that, you get free lunch.
Oh,
But there's so many differences regionally with beekeeping that you just can't go by a calendar.
no.
If you're from way different geographical areas, what you can go by though is what's working and what's not, and the general principles of beekeeping. And the general principles of beekeeping are healthy hive, healthy brood. You know, you judge the health of a hive by the health of the brood. A healthy hive, a pest-free hive as much as possible, a laying queen, plenty of food. And those are just givens. That's what you need to be successful with beekeeping. It doesn't matter your area. What does matter is how you get that level of food. You can help a hive to become healthy just by management and practices. You can get a hive to be healthy. You can kind of stimulate a hive into having a productive queen, having brood production. But as far as forage goes, I mean, that right now we're in the middle of a honey flow here and a huge pollen flow too. So that's why the bees are relatively nice out here. They won't treat you that nice here in August. They're going to let you know that this is not the time to be bothering us in August. But if you don't have forage, then you're in a position of either moving your bees or providing food for them, one or the other. And you can provide food for them and cause them to continue in brood production. And if you provide enough food for them, they'll even make a super honey for you. But it's sugar syrup honey. And chemically, it's honey. Because once they invert the sugars, once they break that sucrose into fructose and glucose and cure it, technically it's honey. But it's not ethically, it's not something that you want to be selling to everybody. Does it taste like honey? Well, kind of, yeah. It's a real light, nice, pretty honey, but it's sugar syrup honey. So if you want to make honey, I don't care if you make sugar syrup honey. It makes no difference to me. I'm probably not going to eat it anyway. But
how can you tell for sure when you do it?
Well, unless you have a very discerning taste, you can't. Because if you have it tested, it's going to test as honey. Because it's going to have fructose and glucose in it and not sucrose. And it's going to test as honey. But it is not likely to have any minerals at all in it. If they're making the honey in the hive, it's going to have traces of the pollen. Not so much from what they're foraging to make the honey, but from what they're tracking in the hive and carrying through the hive. So it'll have traces of pollen anyway, but it's hard to tell the difference. So Roy, you can keep feeding your totes of syrup.
Thanks, Ken.
But that's actually the biggest challenge that we face if you stay on top of your hive health and your parasite level, you can stay ahead of those things. You're going to lose hives. Just don't fool yourself into thinking that you're going to keep all your bees alive because you're going to be able to do this when nobody else can. Don't fool yourself into thinking that, because that you're going to have an emotional breakdown at some point when you realize that I'm really not doing a very good job of this. As long as you're still keeping bees, you're still doing a good job of it. Guys that have made their families, that have made their living with bees for 3 generations, maybe 4, 2 years ago lost 80 to 90% of the bees. Some outfits lost every single hive they had. And I'm talking about people that had 30,000 hives. And major hit to the commercial industry. If those guys can't do it, why are you beating yourself up over losing 4 out of 10 or losing 4 out of 5 even? They're professionals and depend on their living with it. And there's no reason in beating yourself up. You don't want to kill your bees on purpose. Well, some of them you might, but I've had hives that I felt that way about. And so far, I've only had 1 hive that got the garbage bag treatment, but they brought it on themselves, you know. And
You hadn't been bothering them.
well, that is just a good life lesson. There are consequences to your actions, and their actions were very poor, and continue to be very, very poor, and they wouldn't rectify that. So I helped them. You know, I'm hoping that in the next dimension of life that they've corrected themselves. But I think 37 years, that's not too bad, just garbage bagging 1 hive. Now, I had some very poor thoughts about several other hives, but only one of them got the full treatment. But our biggest challenge, speaking for myself and guys that I work with, it's not in killing varroa mites, and it's not in keeping hives pest-free or even virus-free. It's not having to work around ag chemicals and having to manage around all these things. Our biggest challenge is forage and finding some place to put bees that they're going to be able to make honey crop, not just due to having the forage eliminated either by chemical spray or by dozing and tearing out trees, but by weather. Things that are outside, all those things are outside our control. Yesterday, the biggest part of the day yesterday, they were flying fungicides on the wheat, airplane, aerial spray. Well, that's notorious to drift, especially if there's a little bit of wind. And that's outside our control. You can't control that, but you can control how you respond to it. And you can't go out, even though this is Kentucky, and we tend to do things like this, you can't go out and take pot shots at the airplane, you know, to drive them away from your field. That never ends well for anybody. So, but it don't do any good to call and complain about it, because when a man is standing there with money in his hand saying, I want my wheat field sprayed, that wheat field is going to get sprayed. It doesn't matter what's around. If you have a bee yard all the way around that wheat field and there's clover blooming all the way around it, it's going to get sprayed. I worked in that industry off and on for a few years, and I've never once seen anybody not get chemicals applied to a field for any reason. High winds, that's all right. May not be blowing down there close to the ground where we're spraying. Blooming crops all around it with bees working it, they're just bugs. I've never seen anybody denied service for that, and so don't expect it. You can put your hives, your bee yards, you can locate them with government offices, all that you want, and it can be in every single chemical applicator's office and aerial applicator office in the whole region. And when it comes time to spray the crop, your crop's going to get sprayed. Mike.
Me and another guy in the neighbor up there, we took the guy to court. Year before last. So, his boom's up way too high and his limbs was only 20 miles an hour. I recorded it also.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was spraying herbicide. The neighbor had killed, I don't know how many of his trees. He had just planted brand new trees and everything. Didn't do my bees any good. But anyway, we took him to court. State ag guy came down, took pictures of everything. Wrote a big long report, had 200-300 witnesses to what actually took place. The state guy from Springfield, Capital, from the Agricultural Center, went back, sent a big long report, took all that report, got it there on the stand, and that's all hearsay evidence. Dismissed the whole thing. Even the report from the state.
Yeah.
It's all hearsay.
Several years ago, some of you people from Indiana might actually know this guy. He's a prominent Indiana beekeeper, and I've known him for years. And he's one of the most upstanding, honest, good beekeepers. This Lynch fella, I think is his name, wasn't it? Yeah, something like that. No, Dave Shenefield is the man's name. And Dave had a bunch of bees die from an obvious pesticide exposure. An obvious pesticide exposure is when you go to your bee yard and there's a pile of dead bees out in front of the hive. And bees spinning around, the ones that are alive, spinning around on the bottom board or on the landing board, and dead bees inside the hive. That's classic pesticide exposure. That's a symptom of it. And he lost one pretty good sized bee yard. I don't remember how many hives were in it, but it was from the seed application, the chemical application that's on seed that goes into a dust, and it's a powdery dust. The wind was blowing, and the bees picked that up, or it got on the bees, and it drifted into the hives, and it killed a bunch of hives for him. And he contacted all the right people to contact, and the Bayer company actually sent a representative out there, which is kind of like hiring a fox to tell you who killed all your chickens, you know. But they sent a representative out there with a state ag representative, and they took samples of the bees and analyzed all that stuff. So took samples of the comb, samples of the pollen, all of that. And I was at Dave's place a few years ago. It was the year after all of that happened. And I asked him how it come out, and he said, "I got this on my bulletin board in here. I want to show you." And it was the final report from the state ag department, and the Bayer representative wrote, these bees had significant exposure to this particular chloranphenidol or chloramphenidine, anyway, to at least 2 different chemicals that were common in that seed coating. And he said it had significant exposure to it. Was obvious evidence that they were exposed to these chemicals. And I mean, you could see the spikes where it showed on the analysis where they had it analyzed at a lab. And the end of it was incidental. It didn't. That's not what you can blame on these bees dying. Well, Dave said, "What do you get out of that?" And I said, "Well, I get out of it that you've been had, man." And
Bear had more money.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't expect any better treatment than that. We're a very small slice out of agriculture, and agriculture is a small slice out of the government budget, and we're not going to get a lot of consideration from raising any kind of fuss about chemical exposure or mishandling of chemicals. The label, we always hear the label is the law. If we're treating for mites, I mean, it is pounded into our skulls. The label is the law. You have to follow the label because that is the law. That's only for us. That's not for any ag chemicals, because the label clearly says, do not spray within 50 feet of a waterway. Do not spray within 50 feet of where there is any aquatic life. Do not spray within 50 feet of blooming plants that are visited by pollinating insects. It says that, and it just kind of, the label's not the law when it comes to that, and it's all about what Roy said. It's all about money, and our lobbyists, they're the ones that drive Kias to the meetings, or maybe get an Uber to take them. They're not pulling up in limousines. The lobbyists for Bayer, they pull up in limousines. So we're not going to get any better treatment. But it's about forage and feeding. You have a question back there?
Yeah, when you're saying this, I understand not very little, but who is the bee attorney? Because it's one thing to know what the laws that have been passed that are on the books,
Yeah.
they'll show up in the labeling, but the issue about the complexity of these compounds
Yeah.
affecting not just bees' health, but human health, who is the attorney that can understand bee language, or somebody else that really understand, here's the monetization, the way finance and credit works, to create healthier hives and healthier communities. Because somebody could be in this meeting, but to know who you need to speak with, because they'll never be quite visible. You're really talking, I think, the edge of science.
I don't know of anybody that would meet that qualification, but I mean, I'm not in that circle. If you wanted to talk to somebody, and this guy, he's very accessible. He's a beekeeper, a big beekeeper. He's also involved in a lot of lobbying efforts. But if you want to get the best and most accurate and most up-to-date information, you need to contact Stephen Coy, C-O-Y. And he's easily the best authority that I know on beekeeping and lobbying and chemical. I've heard him give several talks. The Coy family has bees all around where we have bees in Moss Point, Mississippi. They're in Wiggins, Mississippi, which is 25 miles from Moss Point. And we have bee yards that share the same territory. So I've heard Stephen talk at several different conferences, and he is very knowledgeable on all of that. He would know the answers to the questions that you have. All I know is to say, call Stephen.
It's as if you find this answer, but the bees, they're talking a different language.
Right.
You're talking a different language, so you're creating fresh bread,
Right.
fresh knowledge.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, is herbicide have a toxicity to bees?
Yes, herbicide does have a toxicity to bees, but the better analogy of how herbicides affect bees goes all the way all back to forage. I mean, dicamba is a perfect example. There used to be a lot of commercial beekeepers on the Arkansas side of the Mississippi River. until dicamba became a very popular herbicide to use post-emergence for soybeans and I think other crops too, but soybeans in particular. And dicamba, it works really well. It's a 2,4-D derivative. It's not 2,4-D, but that's how it acts. And the problem with it is that it don't stay where it is sprayed. You can spray dicamba under the most perfect conditions, and it'll be just fine. It won't drift to any unwanted areas. But if it rains, as soon as the rain is over, the dicamba will come up and it will move with any wind current. And it killed virtually all of the natural forage in the Mississippi Delta on the Arkansas side. Tennessee didn't use it, or didn't allow its use as much. But dicamba is now restricted. It can't be used. But the forage is gone because it killed it for good. It didn't kill it for one season. It killed it for good. So now, and that's exactly why the Coy family, they're from Arkansas. That's exactly why they wound up in Wiggins, Mississippi, because all the forage, all the honey plants were gone. And that's we're kind of conditioned to think that it's something that we've done that's causing harm to our bees. You didn't keep mites controlled. We're actually pretty good at killing mites. Well, it's the viruses that the mites bring into hive. It is the viruses, but if you're good at killing mites and good at raising more bees, you can overcome that. But you can't overcome starvation without just feeding excessively. And everybody don't have the wherewithal to order a tanker load of high fructose corn syrup or sucrose syrup, and it's not practical anyway.
So the herbicide isn't a direct kill; it's almost indirect.
It's indirect.
It's taking the
Yep.
forage. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a good if you wanted to use an herbicide in very small applications, is there a good alternative that is like white vinegar or something that would?
Yeah, some of the more natural herbicides work okay. And I'm not going to beat anybody up for spraying Roundup around their hives. It's your hives and your ground. I was riding, coming from Cuba to here. It used to be both sides of the road, all the way from Cuba to here, lined with black locusts. And it stunk. It smelled so sick sweet. It stunk at this time of year. Well, all that's been pushed out. Well, there was a guy riding in the truck with me coming from Mayfield to here, and they were pushing out one particular fence row, and he'd give them a good cussing, not to their face. He was cussing me to cuss them, and which is never comfortable. But he said, there goes our honey crop. What are you going to do about it? If you didn't want it pushed out, you should have bought the farm instead of them buying it. That's the only alternative. You can't afford to buy a farm just to put bees on. Or I can't, anyway. I have better judgment than that. We don't owe anything on this farm, and we still have to watch our pennies, to make everything come out in the black every year. But we're conditioned to think that we should have done a better job. You can learn how to do as good a job as can possibly be done in beekeeping and wind up in an area where there's no good forage. And if you don't feed, they're going to starve. Just the way it is. Roy?
Do you think fungicide by itself hurts the bees?
Fungicide by itself does hurt the bees.
It does?
And the way it hurts the bees, and it's like I'm just beating this horse over and over, and the poor horse ain't quite dead yet, but I'm trying. What it does, the bees forage on plants that have been exposed to the fungicide. They bring pollen back to the hive. That pollen will not ferment. And they're okay with eating fresh pollen. the pollen still has the amino acid content in it while it's fresh. But when they ferment it, which is the bee's way of preserving the protein content of the pollen, when they ferment it, it won't properly ferment, and it loses its protein content within a couple of 3 weeks. And you'll think everything is going just fine because you won't notice any problem with brood production. The larvae are coming off just fine. They're being fed and everything's coming off just fine, but they're feeding on fresh protein, fresh pollen. About a week after the first killing frost, you'll start seeing your hives go into a decline, and it will just get steeper and steeper because there's no fresh pollen coming in, and they're having to depend on what they stored. And within a month after the first killing frost, your bees will be dwindled down to almost nothing. And that's the effect fungicide has on plants and on bees.
Do they ferment the pollen by adding some nectar and then yeast in the air? How does
The yeast that's in the pollen, already, and they'll add nectar or they'll add honey and water. One of those two. There's always water in the hive from condensation from the bees breathing, from respiration. So there's always water available. They don't have to forage for water, but they add either nectar, which has a lot of moisture in it, or honey with added water. And the yeast that's already in the pollen will allow it to ferment. But the fungicide has a negative effect on the yeast in the pollen.
But the fermentation process is to preserve?
The fermentation process is all about preserving that amino acid content. Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, so on a positive note, what do you recommend to plant to increase forage?
Well,
I mean, you can talk about all the negative things.
I know.
So what is something positive we can do?
Do you like music? Join a quartet. No.
Like, are there certain trees?
There's a lot of good plants that you can plant for bees to forage on. And if you're talking about just a few hives, you can make a little difference. But if you're talking about 30 or 40 hives, then it takes a lot of forage to make much difference with that many hives. So anything in the mint family for an annual, and bees love anything in particular families. The families are the mint family for a deeper rooted plant, a perennial, anything in the holly family. They love anything in the holly family. And there's a lot of wild plants that are actually in the holly family that you wouldn't think about, but bees work those. Anything in the brassica family, which is mustard, canola, rapeseed, cabbage, and anything that blooms in the brassica family, they use that a lot. And they're highly attracted to all of those. The issue most people have, I get this question occasionally. I'm going to get bees. What can I plant so I can make a lot of honey? Well, how much ground do you have? Oh, I have a big yard. Well, that's nice. That you have a big yard. You need to plant probably a half a dozen mature basswood trees. Now they can't be a 10-foot tall tree. They need to be a 40-foot tall mature basswood tree. Maybe a couple of tulip poplars and a dozen black locusts. And well, where do you get those? Well, you don't. I mean, you can't plant a mature tree like that and expect anything out of it. But that's the dilemma that we have, is being able to actually plant something that will make enough difference to be a positive for this. Out here in this field, right now I have, there's quite a bit of crimson clover growing out there. There's berseem clover, which is a white clover that bees work. There's a white Dutch clover, which is a white clover that bees work. And there's a Silver River sweet clover. It's not come up much yet. It hadn't got tall enough that you can even tell what it is. It's a later in the summer plant. And by the time that the sweet clover is actually doing something, I will probably have already disc up the ground out here and planted buckwheat in the field. I'll plant the buckwheat in three different stages in the field so that there's always one patch that's blooming. And buckwheat will bloom 3 weeks from the day that you plant it. And it will bloom and will have nectar for about 3 weeks. So when one crop starts blooming, you plant the second crop. And you have this continual bloom. Bees love it. Queens will keep laying with buckwheat blooming. And they'll make a little bit of honey. But the main thing is it keeps your hive productive. It keeps your hive living without you having to feed it. And unless you can find a place like we found at the river where you can move your hives to and let them feed on natural forage, which is the best that they could feed on, unless you can find a place like that, then you're limited as far as how much ground that you have to be able to plant. Small acreages, bushes are better than ground cover. You can plant a ground cover that will actually produce when it has a second canopy over it. But white clover is a good example. Dutch white clover. You could plant sumac. Bees like sumac, and it's a late summer or mid to late summer bloomer, which is a benefit to the bees because there's not a lot blooming when it blooms. And you could have an understory of clover under that, which you might get something off that too. But it's not all gloom and doom, but it's a thorn in my side, to say the least. It's a soapbox that I tend to get on occasionally, and until somebody kicks it out from under me, I find it hard to change topics.
When do you plant your buckwheat?
I start planting my buckwheat when crimson clover stops blooming.
That won't be too long from now.
About another week and a half, 2 weeks. So, in other words, I start planting buckwheat mid-May.
So you don't get that much honey from it?
I got too many hives on it. There's 17 acres of ground out here, tillable ground. If I had it all in buckwheat and I had 10 hives out there, I'd probably get a super of honey per hive, a medium super of honey per hive off of it.
So
But
mainly just to maintain the bees.
that's my purpose for it. For most beekeepers, they would be planting it for the honey. But
I want the buckwheat honey, but I wouldn't mind maintaining my bees with it.
well, it's very good for maintaining bees, for keeping your queens laying.
Isn't that dark honey?
It is the dark honey, and if you like the taste of Robitussin cough medicine,
I said that it ain't good to winter.
you're gonna love it.
They don't winter good on it.
No, they don't. Bees don't winter well on dark honey, but you can take it off and you know, there's a lot of people just crave the flavor of black licorice. I despise it. You know, you're not selling me. I'm not as quick on my feet as I used to, but I'm quick enough you're not going to chase me down to sell me black licorice. Buckwheat honey's the same way, but there's some people, the people that like it, love it, and they don't want nothing else. There's a market for buckwheat honey. It may not be the same market you have for your clover honey, but there's a market for buckwheat honey. Sell the buckwheat honey and feed the bees something better. So is everybody tired of hearing about how our bees are starving to death and there's nothing you can do about it?
One more quick question.
All right.
When you were in St. Louis, you told us about small hive beetles and that you have a short fire sewer. Small hive beetles.
I do. Yeah, I do. It's a two-part thing. One part kills the adults. The other part kills the larvae. You don't have to use both of them. Either one will work by itself. One of them is a legal product, has been approved to be used in the hive, just not in the way that you would be using it. So it's illegal. In other words, the product is legal. The application is not, which the label's the law. so they say. Just pretend you're a soybean farmer. That's all you got to do. You know, I wasn't trying to kill beetles. I was trying to keep these things out of my soybeans. And just for full disclosure, we have a farm that raises soybeans and corn and wheat, not cotton, soybeans, corn, and wheat. So I'm on both sides of this fence. I don't want nothing eating up my soybeans, but I would just like for everybody to have to play by the same rules that I'm forced to play by. That's all I'd like to see. Yes.
How far can the bees travel to pollinate and find it back to their hive?
5 to 7 miles. They don't commonly go that far. Most of the time it's within 2 miles. They almost never go less than a quarter mile. I've had this field planted with just solid clover before, and bees out there that never knew it was even growing there. They come out of the hive and they're on a mission. And I'm thinking, where are you going? I mean, you got this smorgasbord right here. Where are you going? And I'll drive around the road wondering, where are these bees even going? And there'll be a field of vetch 2 miles over here. That vetch is not it's not as nutritious as white clover. Yet the bees are flying over my 12 acres of white clover out here and going straight to that vetch field.